This is your orchestration tutor Thomas Goss with an orchestration tip for the second week of 2013 and some advice about how to edit your harp parts. In the second edition of Sam Adler's epic text on orchestration, he mentions a formula for helping orchestration students remember the order in which pedals are arranged at the base of the concert harp. Did Columbus bring enough food going to America? Or in other words, DCB, did Columbus bring, under the left foot, and EFGA, enough food going to America, under the right. This corresponds neatly to the old standard pedal marking composers have been using since the double-action harp was invented a couple of centuries ago. It's actually extremely important that a composer be aware of the limitations of the double-action mechanism, and to work out which pedals need to be changed at what time, and to be sure that the tuning is compatible within the landscape of 7 strings, each with a range of 3 semitones. Having this diagram firmly ingrained in your skull helps quite a bit as you check through the harp part. Harpists require more preparation than other orchestral players. It's very difficult to sight read effectively in an orchestral rehearsal, as so many factors need to be worked out in a part. Checking tuning, positioning the hands, assigning fingerings, and deciding where to muffle the strings. All these things and more are written out on the part before the harpist can dedicate themselves to the task of learning a new piece. Harpists actually don't use the old-style DCB/EFGA marking very much anymore. What I've seen in most harp parts is this strategy: a harp pedal diagram showing the layout of the pedals under the feet. It's a very clear representation of the position of each pedal: up for flat, middle for natural, and down for sharp. This diagram is usually placed at the start of the piece, at the top of pages, and also around rehearsal marks. After all, when the conductor lifts the baton and says, "Everybody back to figure F," the harpist had better know how to set the pedals instantly for that section of music. It's also mandatory for glissandos, even if the music isn't changing tuning. Now, it's important to know that incidental changes of pedal should not be indicated by this diagram every single time. It's just too many things to read at once, when what's really needed is 1 or 2 alphabetic signs indicating which minor changes to make. And when a harpist decides to write out the tunings for all strings, they like to do this: write out 2 lines, with the top line given to the right pedals, and the bottom line to the left pedals, but in reverse order. Pedal marks can also be dependent on which feet are being used in what order. Here, the harpist is setting up the change with G natural under the right foot, and D natural under the left, then moving her right foot over to A natural as the music starts. Since her foot is still resting on the A pedal 2 bars later, it's paired with the D pedal, then moves over to change back to the G pedal. Note the pedal diagrams above each phrase, also showing the layout. In a place like this, the harpist might want to see both sets. I've composed and arranged hours of orchestral music using the harp, not to mention some chamber and solo works as well. Even so, I still find more to learn about how to score for harp, and competently prepare their parts to save them as much time as possible. My advice for the beginning orchestrator is to actually not go overboard with the markings, until you really have a firm grasp of what you're doing. The most important thing is to make sure that all pedal changes work, and that you've marked every one of them as you go along. When you get your parts back from the harpist, really look over them to see what you missed, and edit accordingly if the corrections were made by a professional or semi-professional. Even the best orchestration manuals tend to deal with concert harp too lightly, and there are many important aspects that have been missed, or inadequately explained. For the past week, I've been covering some of these blind spots on my Tip of the Day series on Twitter and Facebook. If you're a developing orchestrator scoring for harp, I urge you to go have a look. I've linked them in the info for this video. And even with all that, there's still so much more to understand about Harp. I could spend another 2 to 3 weeks on it. But let's change gears now. I've got a short but juicy tip about double bass articulation to share next week. See you then.